it's time to talk to somebody on the GOP side. He is a longtime senator out of South Carolina. He's well known. You know him. The one and only Lindsey Graham sits down with yours truly on the debut of Straight Shooter with Stephen A. Stephen A. with Senator Lindsey Graham. The one and only Senator Lindsey Graham is joining me right now. Hello, sir. How are you? How's everything?
I'm good. My hope is that you have two shows after you have me on.
Okay.
So good luck.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Yes, and I'm counting on that, sir. And I can't wait to see you
You're
face to face.
taking risks, but I like risk takers. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Let's get right to it. Honestly, unfortunately, to start off on a sad note, we all saw the horrific killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk in Utah last week. Your thoughts about how you felt when you first saw what transpired, sir?
Well, disbelief, really. I said, here we go again. Couldn't believe it. I didn't know Charlie that well, but I did know him. In the MAGA world, he was a very influential figure. He helped President Trump enormously win in 2024. So I knew him through that. But I hadn't told anybody this, Stephen, but I was actually at the White House set to meet with President Trump at 3:30. And I was talking to Steve Witkoff about the Mideast. And he showed me the video where Charlie got shot, and I couldn't believe it. And when President Trump issued the statement that Charlie had been killed, that Charlie was dead, I was sitting right across from him in the Oval Office at the desk, right across from the president. And he said, "Send it out." And it was a gut punch. It was the mood in the White House was really one of shock and just great sadness. And Charlie was close to the president. This was a gut punch to him.
When you talk about a gut punch, you've been on the record saying that the president sees this as an attack on his conservative political movement. Explain that, sir.
Yeah. Well, I think he sees this as an attack on what he created. You know, they tried to blow his head off in July of last year. Mm-hmm. And, there is political violence. But this seems to me to be different. It's not they all do it. You know, if you're going after the president, he's the head of this movement. He's also the president, but he's the head of a political movement. And there's probably no greater symbol of the MAGA movement outside the president than Charlie Kirk. So that's the way he views it. And I think most Republicans see it that way, is that the radical left has sort of declared open season on the MAGA world. And here's what I would say. I blame the man who did the shooting above all others. Okay. But the radicalization of people with political differences is sort of an all-time high. You're too young to remember this, but I remember 1968 well. And the last thing we want to do, Stephen, is become the Mideast. In the Mideast, when somebody is wronged or harmed or somebody close to you is killed, the answer is to kill the other group back. Well, that's Mideast. We don't need that here. The answer is to organize politically and try to follow Charlie's lead of debate, political organization, and winning at the ballot box.
I completely agree with that. I have no opposition to that kind of thinking at all, Senator. I'll tell you that much, and I'll state that for the record. But when we talk about political radicalization, I don't think any side is immune from guilt on this one, whether it's the right or the left. You get the impression that things have gotten a bit too extreme, to say the least, and it needs to be dialed down significantly. Yet the president didn't necessarily do that when he first learned of Charlie Kirk's death. What he did was blame the left, and in my estimation, that helped nothing. What were your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm just trying to be honest with you. You know, you got me on the show for a reason.
Yes, sir.
I think he believes this is a continuation of an attack on his movement, not just we all do it, everybody does it. What happened in Minnesota is terrible. What happened to Gabby Gifford is terrible. I mean, his political figures were attacked and killed. But this is an attack on a movement, a political movement. That's the way he sees it. But the answer lies with a response. And the response has to be nonviolent. The response has to be take your disagreements into the political arena, do what Charlie did, debate the other side, out-organize them, register to vote, and show up in 2026. That's what I'm focused on. You're heartbroken. I get that. But how we respond to this will determine whether or not we can become a great country, stay a great country, or we become the Mideast. If you want to live someplace where, revenge is the norm, go to the Mideast. I choose not to live that way.
Neither do I. We're talking to Senator Lindsey Graham right here on Straight Shooter with Stephen A. Smith. I got to tell you, Senator, when I look at some of the politicians, certainly not all, and it would be wrong to castigate and impugn the integrity of all politicians, but I saw folks on Capitol Hill, folks were asking for a moment of silence, and the representatives on Capitol Hill couldn't even come to an agreement on that. And so how is an American citizen, in your estimation, supposed to look at something like that when we have elected officials on Capitol Hill that can't even be reasonable and sensible enough to engage, to come together for a moment of silence, let alone some level of decorum, at least in the face of the cameras, so the American citizen doesn't have to see that level of dissension and tension going on in our nation's capital?
Great question. How should they feel? They should feel disappointed. There's the Red Sox, Yankees, Auburn, Alabama, you pick your rivalry. Some people get more joy out of the team they hate losing than the team they support winning. I'm in the camp, I want my team to win, and I don't necessarily have to hate the other team. So there's a belief we reward in American politics today the loudest among us. Mm-hmm. And, people play their political bases. But, yeah, that's a good point. You cannot have like a moment of silence for a man that was killed with two young kids. Whether you agree with Charlie or not, he was debating out in public, and the answer is not blow his head off. And America's kind of screwed up right now, but we've been there before. 1968. You had Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy killed within months of each other. Mm-hmm. You had riots in the street, so you had the Vietnam War. We pull out of that. I think we'll pull out of this, but let's start with social media. You want to find common ground here? The social media sites who spread all this crap, who radicalize and let people prey on kids and bully kids and push people to commit suicide. You can't sue them. Then there's no regulatory body. Let's start going after social media and hold them accountable. That would be a good place to start.
You have a support of 1,000% in me on that front, because something needs to be done. Because I got to tell you something, there's no level of accountability, and that's one of the biggest problems, because people could say and do whatever they want over social media and essentially operate with impunity. Are there any laws that you're proposing, or any of your contemporaries, anything y'all doing on Capitol Hill to address this?
Absolutely. I've got an idea. Now, this is a little wonky, but hang in there with me. In the 90s, when they created the internet, when Al Gore invented the internet, there was this understanding that you're not going to hold the social media company liable for the content. So if you say something on Google or Facebook or whatever that's offensive or defames a politician or a public figure like yourself, Google or Facebook is not liable. You have to go after the person who did it. Well, the problem all these years later is that the social media companies addict people by extreme content. These sites are used by sexual predators to groom children. So if you're a broadcast network, you're a newspaper, you defame me or we can sue them. But social media companies who spread the defamation, who allow their platforms to be used by sexual predators, are immune from liability. We have a section in our law called Section 230 that prevents individuals from suing social media platforms. So if your child is being bullied, they're on a website, and you call the website and say, my child is being bullied, will you help me? If your child is being groomed on one of these websites, and you call the social media company, please help me, there's nothing you can do about it if they don't help you. I want to change that. I want to do away with Section 230 and allow parents and people in America who feel harmed by these social media sites to bring a lawsuit. It will be up to them to prove their case. But if you believe your child has been bullied, pushed into suicide, drugs being sold, that your child has been preyed upon by sexual predators, and the website in question made that happen, then you can bring those bastards to court and sue them. They're the only companies in America that you have no recourse against. There's nothing a parent can do because the law won't allow these people to be sued. I want to change that law.
And you believe that's going to go a long way towards solving a
Hell yeah,
boatload of
that's
issues
going to go a long way.
that's plaguing
Unleash the
America.
trial lawyers for these guys. I used to be a trial lawyer.
Yes,
You
I'm
could
aware.
have a social media site, but you got to be responsible for the content. You got to be responsible for what's put up. So if you got a website where a bunch of people start chatting about killing somebody, then I want to go after you because you're making money off that chat. I want you to be held responsible for what you put out there, how you make money. That's not unreasonable, is it?
I don't think it is at all. I completely support where you're coming from, so I have no problem with it whatsoever. We're talking to Senator Lindsey Graham out of South Carolina, right here with Stephen A. on Straight Shooter with Stephen A. I want to get to a couple of subjects because I know you only got a few minutes, and I just want to make sure while I have you on the line to get to some of these things because I know obviously you're a member of the GOP, a strong supporter of President Trump, et cetera, et cetera. I want to know what your position is in this today on a couple of issues. The war in Ukraine, for example, is ongoing. Yesterday, UN Representative Brian Fitzpatrick out of Pennsylvania introduced the Sanctioning Russia Act of 2025 following the President Stern Truth Social post to NATO nations. Explain that to my audience, please.
Okay, number one, what's going on? Russia is to blame. I want you to hear from me on your show that the bad guy is Putin. You know, Ukraine got invaded. They're fighting like tigers. What would you do if somebody tried to take your country? You'd fight back.
Right.
I blame Putin. This bill that you just mentioned, I created in the Senate. Brian is the House co-sponsor, the author of. I got 85 co-sponsors, and here's what it does. It allows President Trump to put tariffs on countries that buy cheap Russian oil that don't help Ukraine. China, India, and Brazil buy about 80% of Russian oil, very cheap. It helps their economy. Putin takes that money to prosecute the war. I want China and India to understand that if you keep buying cheap Russian oil, we're going to put tariffs on your products coming into the United States. So you have to pick from the American economy, between the American economy and buying cheap oil. When Trump put 25% tariff on India for buying cheap Russian oil, all of a sudden India's talking to us.
Right.
I'm urging Europe to do the same.
Senator Graham, I get that part, but help me. I'm a novice at this. Let me be very, very clear. I'm not an aficionado. I learn as much as I possibly can as we go along, and I give you my honest opinion. Every time I hear about us and we're going to throw tariffs on China, I'm like, wait a minute. This is China that we're talking about. We do business with them just like they do business with us. Last time I checked, we kind of owe them some money. What can we really do to phase them? What do you say to an American citizen that has that question?
Be less dependent on them. You know, what did we learn from COVID? All of our medical equipment, all of our antibiotics are made in China. You know, that's not good for us. So there's going to be a company coming to South Carolina that can make antibiotics in America. We got 3% of antibiotics that we use come from America. I want to get to 50%. We can wean ourselves off on our dependency for China. But the last time I checked, there's no way to fight evil without taking some pain yourself. You know, in World War II, everybody was all in, Stephen. Right. Nobody complained. Everybody joined. To my friends in Europe, hell yeah, it will be hard for you to take on China. It will be hard for us to take on China. But if you want to end this war in Ukraine, make China pay a price for propping Putin up. If we can't do that, there goes Taiwan. Let me, if you'll just...
Please, go ahead. The floor is yours, sir. Go ahead.
1 second. This is a dress rehearsal for Taiwan. If China believes that Europe will not stand up and push back to China helping Putin invade Ukraine, there goes Taiwan. If we can't demonstrate to China that we're willing to make them pay a price for propping up a war machine that is a bloodbath in the making, by helping Putin buy his cheap oil, you're keeping this war going, and you need to pay a price. If we can't muster the courage to stand up to China and fight back now economically, they will take Taiwan, and they will not stop.
Okay.
This is a defining moment in the 21st century.
But Senator Graham, when you talk about getting back to Putin and Russia for a second, because like you said, he's the instigator in all of this. This guy is the individual in the wrong. One would argue that is not the message that we have heard in profound fashion anyway from our president. You seem to be hardcore about Putin the way most Americans believe him to be, but that doesn't seem to be echoed by your president. What do you say to that?
No, that's actually a very good question. I'm not the guy going to go talk to Putin, but somebody has to. And here's what I said about President Trump. He put a 25% tariff on India for buying cheap Russian oil. That's a great start. He gave long-range weapons to Ukraine, something we didn't do in the past administration, so they can reach out and hit Russia more effectively. But I would say this. The red carpet treatment didn't work, Stephen. The attacks against Ukraine have gone up on Trump's watch, not down. It's important for him to follow through. It's important for Europe to join the cause of punishing people who buy cheap Russian oil like China. But I am hoping that President Trump will take it to the next level, and that is to go after China. If Xi called Putin tomorrow and said, "You're hurting me now," this war would end. Take the $300 billion in frozen assets that exist in Belgium, Russian assets, give them to Ukraine, do a 10-year weapons package to Ukraine where Europe buys our weapons so they can defend themselves in the future, then start coming up with packages of tariffs and sanctions to go after Putin's customer is a way to end this war. But when President Trump says it's not his war, I would say it's the world's war, not just Trump's war or Biden's war. That anytime somebody does what Putin's done, then the world has to respond, because in the 1930s, we sat on the sidelines and watched Hitler take one country after another, and 50 million people wound up getting killed. We've had Poland and Romania hit by Russian drones. So this is a war that matters not only to America but to the world. And I stand behind President Trump to end it, but all of us are going to have to up our game.
Before I let you get on out of here, Senator Graham, and I appreciate your time again. Thank you so much. I got one more subject to tackle with you, and then I'll let you go. The president has deployed National Guard troops to cities in blue states like Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Chicago. Well, South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster sent 200 South Carolina Guard troops, according to my research, to D.C. to help, quote, restore law and order, end quote. South Carolina has one of the highest murder rates in the nation. Is he willing to accept military occupation to bring down the crime rate in South Carolina? I thought that would be an interesting question to ask you, sir.
Well, yeah, I think Washington, D.C. is out of control. I think going to Memphis is next. That's Tennessee. That's a red state, blue city in a red state. I think he's going to New Orleans. I like the idea of trying to break the cycle of crime in our nation's capital. If you live up here, things are better. I don't know how sustainable this is, but the point is, we got to be for fighting crime wherever crime is, not the color of the state or the voting habits. So he's looking at Memphis, he's looking at New Orleans, and the idea of trying to restore law and order is long overdue. I just think too many Americans feel afraid, and let's do something about it rather than just talk about it.
I agree with that. I agree with where you're coming from in terms of doing something about it. But last thing that I'd say to you, Senator Graham, is this. When you are a governor of a state, basically you're the commander in chief of that state. As Maryland Governor Wes Moore said when it came to Trump alluding to sending National Guardsmen to Baltimore. Obviously, Gavin Newsom, you've seen how he's reacted when Trump sent the National Guard there to protect federal property. No, even though folks may not like it, nobody's questioning anything about what he's doing in D.C. because, again, that's federal. That's federal. But when you're talking about usurping the authority of a governor in their respective state, you don't find yourself concerned about that, considering our Constitution?
Well, we sent the Guard into states, cities. Detroit was on fire. We've done that before. Presidents have done that before. But really, the question for the country is, if you don't like what Trump's doing in terms of sending the Guard into these high crime areas, then we'll have an election in 2026. You can go to court. I think the governors are going to challenge him. You can be mad at me because I support what he's doing. But the good news about America, if you don't like what any president's doing or any member of the Senate or the House, you can vote us out. And that's a privilege most people don't have. I travel this world a lot. We got a lot of problems here at home, but we got something to be proud of, and that is the ability to charter your own destiny. I don't know where you come from, but you got a hell of a thing going on here. I'm on your show because I find you entertaining.
Thank you.
I find you common sense serious. It's not where I agree with you, not. I just think You're fun to listen to. America, you know, we can get through this. We're going to get through this. And if you don't like what Trump's doing, then vote for the Democrats in the midterm. If you like what he's doing, vote for the Republicans. That's sort of the way it works.
Well, Senator Graham, let me say this before I let you get on out of here, sir. Whether I agree or disagree with you
You
or
have
not,
another show.
it's especially the last thing that you just said. I can't argue with that when you say there's an election every 4 years. You could go out there and vote. You can change rules. You can change laws. You can change
That's
the
right.
people that's in
Yeah.
office. And that's exactly where I'm aligned with. I couldn't agree with you more. And one of the things that's going to happen on this show, as long as I'm doing it, I'm going to be fair-minded. If you're a Republican and you're right, damn it, I'm going to say you're right. And if you're a liberal and I think you're wrong, I'm going to say you're wrong. And that's just the way it's going, and vice versa. So that's just the way it's going to be. I thank you so much for your time, Senator Graham. I really appreciate it. You didn't have to take time out of your busy schedule to be a guest on my first show, and I really appreciate it. And I thank you, and I hope that you'll come back soon.
I will. I hope it's not your last show. I thoroughly
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. I'm gonna be around for a while.
I enjoy you and Sean going at it. I watch you on TV a lot.
Yeah.
You're an interesting guy, and the only sin that I can't abhor is being boring. So you're definitely not boring.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Senator Graham,
All right.
appreciate your time.